With Boruto's time skip just a few weeks away, the topic around Boruto's prospective power level has once again risen to the forefront of the fandom's discourse, and for good reason. With any time skip in anime or manga, the protagonist normally returns with a new ability, or at least a substantial increase in his power level. This will undoubtedly be the same with Boruto, and while most people are theorizing that this ability will be the jougan, I for one beg to differ. And not because I just like to be different, but more so in the sense that the jougan requires more build up, especially in the manga since it's basically non-existent at this point in time. Speaking of time, I believe that Boruto's new ability will be time manipulation, and of course I'm referring to the ability seemingly used by Momoshiki multiple times in the story. Now I've always been of the opinion that this ability was not something Momoshiki could use while he was still alive, and I'm still of that opinion. However, based on what transpired later on in the manga that I think most people missed, this might be an ability Boruto could later extend to himself once he gains full control over Momoshiki's power. To understand what I mean by this, we need to look at the karma seal from a different perspective. This isn't just an ordinary seal that just extracts an Otsutsuki's data into a vessel. In fact, this overpowered Shinjutsu transcends death itself, in that this power allows Momoshiki to interact with Boruto from the spiritual realm, or in some ways Momoshiki is able to temporarily form a link between the spiritual realm and the physical realm for a short period of time. The first time this happened was when Momoshiki gave Boruto his karma seal, and as he pointed out, it appeared that time had stopped. Now this part is very interesting, but there's one thing we need to establish before we're able to proceed with this theory. That of course being, when exactly did Momoshiki give Boruto his karma seal? I blame the confusion around this specific topic mainly on the anime's depiction of this scene, because in the manga it's quite clear what happened. You see, if we go off the events of Ishiki's death in the manga, it's clear that the Otsutsuki can't implant karma post-death. The actual events of the manga dictates this to be the case, since Ishiki didn't implant a new karma seal on Kawaki after he died. The narrative also implies this to be the case, since the entire goal of that arc was to ensure that Ishiki doesn't get to implant his karma seal before dying, which means that he can't do it after passing away. This makes sense since, as stated by Momoshiki, in addition to being a receptacle for one's soul, a vessel also serves as its anchor to the world of the living. So this means that the Otsutsuki's spirit can't exist in the physical realm absent of a vessel. So if an Otsutsuki dies without having a vessel, their soul would face instant extinguishment, as it was the case for Ishiki. What this proves is that Momoshiki had to have implanted his karma seal in Boruto prior to being fully destroyed by that Rasengan. So Boruto being able to see and interact with Momoshiki was due to him already possessing Momoshiki's karma seal. It wasn't an ability of the jougan, which isn't even present in the manga. Now since we've established that this was all taking place post Boruto getting the karma seal and not before, we can then deduce that the ability to stop time itself is more so linked to when Momoshiki interacts with Boruto through the presence of the karma seal, rather than being an ability Momoshiki had the entire time but never used it. This part is very easy to justify, since you just need to watch or read his fight versus Naruto and Sasuke to find multiple times in which the ability to freeze time would have been beneficial to Momoshiki. So him not using the ability in those situations implied that he didn't have access to that ability at that time. In this case, it's more likely that this is a byproduct of Boruto interacting with Momoshiki from a different realm. This makes sense since Ada, who has the ability to see all events, said that somehow Momoshiki had an exchange with Boruto that she couldn't see directly with her Senringan. She then wonders if Boruto is able to communicate with Momoshiki on the spiritual realm. What this then implies is that Ada knows that her Senringan isn't able to perceive events happening on the spiritual realm. When you combine this with the fact that Ada is confirmed to be able to see events happening in other dimensions as she did with Code, this more so implies that Boruto isn't just interacting with Momoshiki in another dimension, he's doing it on another plane of existence altogether. So if you consider what Ada says about this being the spiritual realm which she's unable to perceive, then add what Momoshiki says about the karma serving as an anchor to the world of the living, we can then logically deduce that Momoshiki is in fact interacting with Boruto from the spiritual realm. Now that we've established this, let's look into how the power is depicted in the manga. The first time we know of that this happened is after Boruto gets his karma seal. The manga depicts the phenomena using clouds or smoke moving across the panel. Boruto then also points out that it appears that time has stopped and he's unable to move. The second time this happened was when Boruto tapped into to true essence and collapsed due to the strain of Momoshiki's power. This is once again depicted using smoke moving across the screen and Boruto saying that time has stopped and that he's unable to move. The third time this happened was when Boruto was resurrected by Momoshiki using the DNA within Karma. This is once again depicted by smoke moving across the screen and time being frozen. The only difference here is that Boruto is no longer unable to move. In fact, post getting revived using Momoshiki's DNA, Boruto is no longer paralyzed when Momoshiki triggers this phenomena. This is proven to be the case once again when Momoshiki triggered this ability after Boruto left his house to go meet Shikamaru. We see that Boruto is able to turn around and move his entire body, even though the smoke, which implies that time has stopped, is still on the panel. Not only that, Boruto is able to move from point A to B while time is frozen. Now what makes this interesting is that after the smoke goes away and Momoshiki fully leaves the scene, Boruto is now in the location he moved to while the phenomenon was in play. What this confirms, which is pretty crazy, is that this isn't something happening in his mind, since if it was, Boruto would still be at the door, since that's where he was when the phenomenon occurred. So to anyone who is not Boruto, it would just be as if Boruto teleported to that location if they were able to perceive it. This is pretty insane, since if Boruto is able to control this phenomenon by forcibly summoning Momoshiki to the physical plane, he will be able to stop time mid-battle and still be able to move, thus inflicting damage on his opponents. Or maybe Boruto doesn't even need to summon Momoshiki in order to use this ability. As I mentioned before, Momoshiki didn't have this ability before, since he never used it in the situations where the ability would have been very useful. I mean, he would have been able to freeze time and just fold everyone on the battlefield. So the more logical interpretation is that this is an ability only accessible in his current form. What I mean by this is that the ability to freeze time is a mechanic of the Karma Seal itself. You see, it's already established that the Karma Seal is the same regardless of the Otsutsuki data stored within it. So that's why Boruto and Kawaki possess the same abilities from Karma, even though their Otsutsukis are very different. And of course I'm referring to the base abilities of the Karma Seal itself and not the abilities they gain from the Otsutsuki's dojutsu. In fact, the Karma Seal given to Jigen by Ishiki gave him the ability to absorb chakra, even though Ishiki himself doesn't have the ability to absorb chakra. This means that Karma can possess abilities not innate to the Otsutsuki who performed it. So in essence, this phenomenon could simply be a mechanic built into the Karma Seal that allows the Otsutsuki to interact with their vessel from the spiritual realm or to intervene in events to protect said vessel, as seen with Momoshiki. This never happened with Ishiki since he still existed on the physical plane within the brain of Jigen, and when he died he didn't have a vessel to anchor him to the world of the living. Now initially I was skeptical about the idea of Boruto controlling this phenomenon and using it in battle, since it's only something the Otsutsuki are able to manipulate, not the vessel. Similar to how Momoshiki could use the Karma Seal's data to reconstruct Boruto's organs, but that isn't something Boruto could do by himself. However, due to that same event of Momoshiki reviving Boruto using the data of Karma, I now believe that Boruto might be able to wield this power as his own. You see, as Boruto points out in the manga, he feels as if he can now channel Momoshiki's power better now. We actually get to see this manifest in the form of Boruto now being able to move while time is frozen. He's now able to use Momoshiki's Byakugan to see into the future, and he's now even able to communicate with Momoshiki telepathically. And even in the last chapters of Boruto leading up to Boruto losing everything, we see that Boruto is now able to see and interact with Momoshiki in the physical realm without needing to stop time. They've basically become one entity. There's also the fact that Boruto is now one with the Karma Seal itself. We can see that there's a clear difference with how the Karma Seal changes Boruto's DNA to Momoshiki's through the natural extraction of karma, as opposed to the black marking on his chest after Momoshiki forced it to repair that area of Boruto's body. That, along with Boruto now being 100% pure Tsutsuki, could also allow him to manipulate the karma in the same way Momoshiki did, which means using the ability to stop time. Now Sasuke being able to see what happened between Momoshiki and Boruto could simply just be an ability of the Renegon. We know Sasuke was able to see Madara's Limbo clones that also existed on another plane of existence, so the logic tracks here as well. However, him being able to sense Momoshiki post losing the Renegon is a little tricky, but it could still be explained away by Sasuke just possessing small amounts of that Renegon chakra, so it isn't really that big a deal. With that being said, that's it for the video. Let me know your thoughts on the ability itself. Do you think Boruto will use this ability later on, or do you think it's going to be something that only Momoshiki is able to use when he interacts with Boruto in the physical realm, as we've seen thus far? And if you're someone who believed that Momoshiki had this ability the entire time, what's your justification for him not using it throughout the entire time he was getting clapped by the 5 Kage and Naruto and Sasuke? Like, how exactly does that make sense to you? Just explain it to me in the comments, of course. And also drop a like if you like the video and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.